How could Sarah do this to me at a time like this? As I watched her tear apart the house Leo and I built, I knew that this wasn't just about my son's death. It was about Sarah's desire to erase us from the story. It's a feeling I can't quite explain, the hollow pit in my stomach that wouldn't let go. The funeral of my son Leo was everything I feared it would be and more. At just 34 years old, Leo was taken from us without warning, a heart attack coming out of nowhere, leaving nothing but shock and confusion in its wake. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, that I'd wake up from this nightmare, but I never did. The tears, the sorrow, it was all too much, and yet nothing could have prepared me for what came next. The church was filled with the usual sorrowful hum. People whispered their condolences, but it all felt like a distant echo, like I was somewhere else, just a spectator to my own grief. I sat there, barely able to process the words of the priest, his voice blending into the heavy silence surrounding me. But then there was Sarah, Leo's wife, the woman who, for better or worse, had shared a life with my son. I didn't expect much from her, not that day, not in my current state, but then she leaned in close. Her voice, soft but deliberate, whispered in my ear like a knife to the heart, "You have a week to get out." The words hit me like a physical blow. I froze. My fingers gripped the funeral program in my lap, crumpling it without realizing. I didn't turn to look at her. I couldn't. I didn't want to. I sat there, my body stiff and unmoving, pretending I hadn't heard her at all, while she sat back and continued to play the grieving widow for the room. It was all so cold, so calculated. How could she do this to me, to us, at a time like this? How could she stand there looking like the perfect widow, while already planning my eviction from the home I had helped create with my son? The home Leo and I had shared for years. My mind raced with disbelief. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But it was. And as much as I hated to admit it, I knew I was facing a fight that had only just begun. The reception that followed Leo's funeral felt like a blur. It was supposed to be a time for family, for healing, for remembering Leo's life, but instead it was suffocating. People moved around me, offering kind words that fell on deaf ears. I could barely hold it together. My mind was consumed with the image of my son lying in that casket, gone too soon. Every time I looked around, I felt his absence, like a weight on my chest. Sarah was there, of course, performing the role of the grieving widow perfectly. She cried on cue, clasping her hands over her chest, looking as if the world had crumbled beneath her feet. She was surrounded by people, all offering their support, telling her how strong she was. But as I watched her, something in my gut twisted. There was something off about her. I tried to focus on the conversations happening around me, but my eyes kept drifting back to Sarah. She had positioned herself in the center of the room, accepting the role of the star. She was the widow, grief-stricken, heartbroken, and entitled to sympathy from everyone. But I saw beyond the act, beyond the carefully constructed facade. She wasn't grieving in the same way I was. My gaze landed on her a few times as she spoke to guests, faking a smile between sobs, but I couldn't help noticing the little things. The way she kept glancing toward the door, as if she couldn't wait to get away from the crowd, as if she was already planning her next move. It was then that I saw it. She was walking toward the family portraits on the wall near the stairs, and almost too casually she began to remove them. I watched frozen as Sarah lifted the frame of Leo and me from its place on the wall. She glanced at it for a moment, then turned and started walking away with it. It was subtle, but to me it was as clear as day. She was erasing him, erasing Leo's presence in the house, in his own home. My heart sank into my stomach. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She wasn't even pretending to be discreet about it. One by one, she removed Leo's sports memorabilia from the shelves, his old jersey, assigned baseball-framed photos of his accomplishments. Little pieces of his life, pieces of the man I raised, were being taken down and carted away like they didn't matter. They didn't hold any value, not in Sarah's eyes. It wasn't just the pictures or the memorabilia, it was the way she was moving. There was a purpose behind her actions. It wasn't just about grief, it was about control. She was already making the house her own. She was already turning the place that had been Leo's and mine into something completely different. When I saw her take down the final picture, one of Leo and me laughing at a family barbecue, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands started shaking. I had to leave the room. I couldn't bear to watch her rip apart the only memories I had left of my son. I made my way to the back porch, needing to breathe, needing to clear my head. But as I stood there, the cool air doing nothing to calm my racing heart, I felt a sickening realization settle in. This wasn't just about her grief. It was about something much deeper. Sarah was taking control. She wasn't mourning Leo's death. She was already planning how she would take everything from him and from me. That night, after the reception, I returned to the house I had shared with Leo for over a decade. I had helped him build it, paid my fair share of the mortgage, and watched as our family grew here. This wasn't just a house to me, it was home. But now it felt like a foreign place, a place I was no longer welcome. When I stepped inside, I immediately noticed something was off. The air felt different, colder, emptier. It wasn't just the loss of Leo, it was something else. The house seemed rearranged. My belongings were no longer where I had left them. My things, my books, my personal items, they were gone, packed up, hidden away. My heart sank again. I walked through the house, my feet heavy with each step. In the living room, I noticed the bookshelves had been cleared. My favorite chair, the one I always sat in, was now pushed against the wall, replaced by a modern-looking sofa that didn't belong. Even my family photos had been moved. I went to my room, hoping I could find some semblance of peace. But when I opened the door, I was met with the same feeling of displacement. The bed had been made neatly, too neatly, and the nightstand lamp was unplugged. The dresser drawers where I kept my personal things were half empty. Even my jewelry box was gone. I opened the closet only to find boxes labeled Mom's stuff. It felt as though Sarah had been in here going through my things, deciding what she thought I needed and what I could live without. My mind raced. Was this really happening? Had Sarah already decided that I no longer belonged here, that I was no longer welcome in the house Leo and I had shared? I heard footsteps behind me, and I turned to see Sarah standing in the doorway, a glass of wine in hand. She looked at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I was just organizing," she said, her voice soft, as if she was offering me a favor. "Organizing," I echoed, my voice strained. "You moved my things. You packed them up." She shrugged as if it was nothing. "Well, there's a moving company I can call when you're ready." My mind was reeling. How could she do this? I asked where my jewelry was, and she told me it was in the safe, a convenient excuse to take what didn't belong to her. "It's not personal," she added, her smile cold and rehearsed. "We just assumed you'd want to move back to your sister's." I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I held it in. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. "I don't have a sister," I replied quietly. "Well, I guess you'll figure it out," she said, her tone dripping with indifference. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, feeling more alone than ever. The following morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest, still reeling from the events of the previous night. I could hardly believe what had happened. It felt like I was living in a nightmare that I couldn't escape, but there was one thing I knew for sure: I wasn't going to leave without a fight. This house, the one Leo and I had built together, was as much mine as it was his. Sarah couldn't just take it from me. I had to hold on to something, anything that would prove I belonged here, that I had a right to be in this home. So I started sifting through old files in the study, a room Leo had used to keep all of his important documents. The cabinets were full of papers, insurance papers, old tax returns, bills, and more, but none of them were the one thing I needed. My fingers shook as I flipped through each folder, praying that I would find the deed to the house. Leo and I had always kept it together, that deed. It was a symbol of our partnership, our shared life. He'd made sure it was in both of our names when we bought the house all those years ago. It wasn't just property, it was the foundation of our family, our dreams, And our memories. Leo had promised me that we would always be equal partners in it, but now it was nowhere to be found. I opened one of the folders labeled Home Purchase and started pulling out the old papers. There was a contract from the bank, a loan statement, a receipt from the title company, but no deed. My heart sank. I checked every drawer in the study, combing through piles of paperwork, even checking the file cabinets Leo had always kept so meticulously organized. Nothing. Where was it? Where had Sarah hidden it? The thought made my blood run cold. Had she been planning this all along? Had she anticipated that I would come looking for it, or was I simply too late? I paced around the room, my mind a storm of questions, frustration, and anger. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about control, about Sarah taking something that wasn't hers. I needed that deed. I needed to prove that I had a claim to this house, that Leo and I had built a life here together, and no one could erase it, especially not her. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. If the deed wasn't here, where could it be? Maybe I missed it. Maybe it was in one of the boxes I hadn't gone through. Maybe it was hidden in a drawer or tucked away somewhere Sarah thought I wouldn't look. But as I opened another drawer, I found nothing. My search was in vain, and I felt more helpless than ever. But then I remembered something. When Leo and I updated our wills last year, we had both agreed that we should get legal protection, something to safeguard our future. I'd helped him with the paperwork, and we had visited the lawyer together. Could the deed have been there? Could the lawyer have a copy of it? I realized that the one person who could help me was someone I had put out of my mind in the chaos of everything the lawyer. I couldn't waste time second-guessing myself. If I didn't act fast, Sarah would have her way. I grabbed my purse and headed out the door, trying to calm the pounding in my chest as I drove to the law office. The silence in the car was deafening. The weight of everything that had happened, everything Sarah had done, was too much to bear. But I wasn't going to back down now. When I arrived at the law office, I barely had time to sit before Mr. Holt. The lawyer called me into his office. He was a solid man, someone Leo had trusted for years. His calm demeanor was the one thing that seemed to offer me a bit of peace in that moment. "Margaret, I'm so sorry for your loss," Mr. Holt said, as he sat across from me, his voice gentle but firm. "I know this is a difficult time, but we need to talk about your situation." I nodded, trying to hold it together. "I need help." "Sarah, she's trying to take the house from me. She's already moved my things, packed up my belongings, like she has the right to it, and now I can't find the deed anywhere. I need to know, do I have any legal claim to the house?" Mr. Holt leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. "Margaret, if your name is on the deed, and you have proof of your contribution to the house, then yes, you absolutely have a claim. Sarah cannot legally evict you, but we need to find that deed. Without it, we'll have to rely on other evidence, but it would make things a lot easier." My heart raced with relief. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't powerless. If Leo and I had shared ownership, if I could prove that, then Sarah had no legal right to take the house from me. "I helped with the down payment," I said, my voice trembling. "I used a cashier's check. I still have the receipt." "That's good," Mr. Holt said, nodding. "If we can prove that, and if we find the deed, we've got a strong case. We can stop her from pushing you out of the house." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't alone in this fight. There was hope. And with that hope came a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just going to sit back and let Sarah take everything Leo and I had built together. I was going to fight for it and for my place in this home. As I left the law office, I felt something shift inside me. The fear, the uncertainty, it was still there, but it was now mixed with something else, determination. I would find that deed. I would stand my ground, and I would make sure Sarah couldn't take away the only thing I had left of Leo. It was only a few days after my meeting with Mr. Holt when Sarah made her next move. I had barely slept, still reeling from the discovery of the missing deed and the fact that she had started removing every trace of Leo from the house. But that was nothing compared to what Sarah did next. One morning, as I was sipping my coffee in the kitchen, Sarah came down the stairs, her eyes red, her movements slow. She looked like she had just woken up from a restless night, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. But that feeling quickly dissipated when she casually dropped the bombshell. "I'm pregnant," she said, as if it was no big deal. I froze. The coffee cup in my hand nearly slipped from my fingers. What I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant," she repeated, this time more firmly, as if she had rehearsed the line 100 times. "I used a donor. It was something Leo and I talked about. He wanted me to have a piece of him, even if he wasn't here." My heart sank. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. It wasn't just the shock of hearing about Sarah's pregnancy, it was the way she said it. It was the way she looked at me, as if waiting for my reaction, as if she knew this would be the one thing that would break me, that would make me feel like I had no place here anymore. It was a masterstroke. Sarah wasn't just playing the role of the grieving widow anymore. She had upped the ante, creating a narrative that painted her as a woman who had lost her husband and was now carrying his child, a child that would be her only connection to him. In her mind, I was no longer just a mother grieving for her son. I was an obstacle, someone who would prevent her from moving on, from creating a new family. She continued her performance, her voice trembling as she told me about how hard it had been for her, how she'd been through so much. The tears were real enough tears that anyone could fake if they were good enough at manipulating people. She spoke about how the house was supposed to be a fresh start for her, how it was too big now, too full of memories that hurt. She even went so far as to say that Leo would have wanted her to have space to raise the child, to create a new family. I stood there, my mind spinning. This was no longer about the house. It was about her taking complete control of everything that Leo and I had shared. She was trying to position me as a threat, someone who couldn't see beyond her own grief, someone who would tear apart her new life if I stayed. And I couldn't let that happen. I had to fight back. That afternoon, I went straight to the study. I needed evidence. I needed something that would show the truth, something to counter Sarah's lies. I couldn't let her rewrite history and take everything from me without a fight. I started with the financial documents. Leo and I had always been transparent about everything about the house, the bills, the accounts. We'd worked together to build everything we had, and I knew I could prove it. I dug through the old files, pulling out receipts, mortgage statements, and bank records that showed my contributions to the house. I wasn't just a passive participant. I had helped with the down payment, paid bills, and invested my time and energy into making this place a home. As I sifted through the papers, I found something else, something that made my stomach turn. It was a set of photos that Leo had kept in a folder labeled Our Life Together. They were pictures of us, of me, Leo, and our friends, memories of happier times. But in those photos, I saw something else. I saw Sarah. I saw her lurking in the background, always just a step away from Leo, and me, never quite part of the circle, always on the outside. It was like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Sarah had always wanted to be in control. She had never really been a part of our family, and she resented it. But now, with Leo gone, she was seizing the opportunity to rewrite everything, to erase the life Leo and I had built, and replace it with her own narrative. I couldn't let that happen. I spent the rest of the afternoon gathering more evidence, photographs, financial records, anything I could find that would prove my place in this house in Leo's life. I even dug through the old family albums, the ones that Leo and I had made together, the ones that told the story of our life. Every picture, every memory was like a small victory, proof that I had been here, that this house had never just been Sarah's. The next day, I called Mr. Holt again. I told him everything: Sarah's pregnancy, the lies she was telling, and the manipulations she was already trying to pull. Mr. Holt listened patiently, and when I was done, he spoke calmly, but with authority. "Margaret," he said, "if Sarah is trying to use this pregnancy to claim the house, we can expose that. We have the evidence of your financial contribution, and we have proof that Leo intended for you to share ownership. This pregnancy, it's just a diversion, a sympathy play. We need to focus on the facts on the legal documents. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I wasn't just fighting for a house. I was fighting for Leo's legacy, for the life we had built together. And I would not let Sarah take that from me, no matter how many lies she told. I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The days that followed were a blur of tension. Every time I walked through the house, I could feel Sarah's presence looming over me. The weight of her manipulation was suffocating, but I refused to let her see my fear. I spent most of my time gathering evidence, organizing the paperwork, and preparing for whatever she might throw my way next. But nothing could have prepared me for the document she would hand me one fateful afternoon. It was late in the afternoon when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment I thought it might be another neighbor offering their condolences, but when I opened the door, I saw Sarah standing there with a folded piece of paper in her hands. She smiled politely, though there was something cold and calculating in her eyes. "Margaret, I think you should see this," she said in that too sweet tone she had perfected. She handed me the paper without a word more. I took the document from her, my hands suddenly shaking as I unfolded it. The words jumped off the page, "Notice of eviction," and my stomach dropped. My eyes quickly skimmed through the rest of the letter. It was addressed to me and stated that I was being evicted from the property that I had to vacate within 30 days. It went on to claim that I was emotionally unstable, that I had become a threat to the household, and was incapable of managing my own affairs. The letter even suggested that social services might need to intervene if I didn't comply. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My heart raced, and the world seemed to blur around me as I processed the contents of the notice. This was nothing but a legal fabrication. Sarah was trying to use the guise of my grief, trying to paint me as someone who couldn't take care of herself, someone who had lost control. It was the ultimate manipulation. I looked up at Sarah standing there with her arms crossed, waiting for a reaction. I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. She thought she had me. "I know this is hard, Margaret," she said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy, "but I can't let you stay here if it's going to be like this. It's for your own good. I'm just trying to help you move on. You've been here long enough." I wanted to scream to tell her exactly what I thought of her cruelty, but I knew I had to keep my composure. I folded the letter slowly, feeling my anger rise, and I handed it back to her. "You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah," I said quietly. "This is a lie. I'll be fighting this, and you will lose." She didn't flinch. She just smiled, that same smile, the one that had no warmth in it. "We'll see about that, won't we?" she said before turning on her heel and walking away. As I watched her go, the anger surged inside me, but so did something else, clarity. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. This was war. She was trying to destroy everything Leo and I had worked for, everything I had left. But she didn't realize something. I wasn't alone. I had the law on my side, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. The next day, I called Mr. Holt. He could hear the urgency in my voice when I explained the situation, and within an hour, I was sitting across from him in his office, the eviction notice placed carefully on the desk between us. He took a moment to read through the letter, his expression growing more serious as he went over the fabricated claims. "Margaret," he said, looking up at me, "this is nothing but a tactic to get you to back down. There's no legal ground for this eviction. She's trying to manipulate you into leaving, but you have every right to stay here." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. However, he continued, "You're going to need to gather everything we can to make sure we have a solid case. The deed to the house, proof of your contributions, anything that shows you have a rightful claim. If Sarah's going to fight this, we're going to need all the evidence we can get." I nodded, my resolve hardening. I already had most of the documents I needed, but I realized there were still a few more things I could do. I would leave no stone unturned. That afternoon, I spent hours combing through every drawer, every file, every piece of paper I could find. I pulled out old bank statements showing my contributions to the down payment, the receipts for the mortgage payments Leo and I had made together. There were documents for renovations we'd done over the years, proof that I had invested time, energy, and money into making this house our home. I also went through photos and old documents, anything that could prove that this house was as much mine as it was Leo's. But the most important piece I had was the letter Leo had written before his death. In it, he reaffirmed that the house was ours, that it would always be ours, and that no one, not even Sarah, could take that away. I held that letter in my hands, feeling the weight of Leo's words in my chest. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was my weapon. I gathered everything, organizing it into a binder, ensuring that I had copies of everything ready to present it to Mr. Holt when I saw him again. This was my home. Sarah could manipulate, she could lie, but she could not erase the truth. The battle was just beginning, but I was ready, and this time I wasn't going to lose. The court ruling was a victory, but it was only the beginning of what I knew would be a long, drawn-out battle. As I walked out of the courthouse, the weight on my shoulders lifted slightly, but the fight wasn't over. Sarah, ever the manipulator, wasn't about to let go that easily. The next few days proved that her attempt to control the situation was far from finished. Sarah's first move came the day after the court ruling. I was sitting in the living room, trying to find some peace, when she appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were red, as though she had been crying, whether out of genuine emotion or for show, I couldn't tell. She stepped into the room slowly, her hands clasped in front of her, her body language full of sorrow. "Margaret," she said softly, her voice trembling, "I know this has been hard for both of us. I never wanted things to get so out of hand." She paused, waiting for a reaction, but I said nothing. But now, with everything that's happened, I'm carrying Leo's child, and I can't do this alone. I need space. I need stability. For the baby. I can't raise a child in a house full of so much tension. Please, just leave. It's what Leo would have wanted. I couldn't help but feel a rush of anger at her words. What Leo would have wanted, Sarah didn't care about what Leo would have wanted. If she did, she wouldn't have lied, manipulated, and tried to erase me from the life we had built together. But instead of letting my anger take over, I stayed calm, something inside me clicking into place. I wasn't going to let her make me feel guilty. Not again. "Sarah," I said quietly, meeting her eyes, "I'm not leaving. You can't manipulate me into thinking I don't belong here. This is my home too. I've fought for it, and I'm not going anywhere." I could see the frustration flash in her eyes, but I wasn't backing down. She took a deep breath, and I could almost see the wheels turning in her head. The sympathetic act wasn't working, so she tried a different approach. "Look," she said, stepping closer, her voice now low and pleading. "I'm just asking for a little peace. I'm asking for space to grieve and raise this baby. I can't do it with you here, not after everything that's happened. You're a reminder of the past, Margaret. Please just go. I'll help you find somewhere to stay, I swear." Her words hung in the air like poison, but I remained calm. "This house is just as much mine as it is yours, Sarah, and whether you like it or not, I'm staying. I didn't add anything else. I didn't need to." My voice was firm, and that was enough. Sarah's shoulders slumped, and she turned away without saying another word. But I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't giving up. Not yet. The battle wasn't over, but neither was I. Later that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something I was still missing. Despite all the evidence, despite the victory in court, something about Sarah's actions still didn't sit right with me. She had been lying for so long, I knew there had to be more hidden beneath the surface. And that's when it hit me, Leo. I needed to understand what he had left behind, what he had wanted for me, especially when it came to Sarah. That night, as I was going through old boxes in the attic, I found something unexpected, a letter. It was folded neatly in an envelope, tucked away in a box, labeled important papers. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized Leo's handwriting on the front. I carefully opened it, the words on the page seeming to leap off and straight into my chest. The letter was written not long before his death, a time when he had been dealing with so many pressures, most of them from Sarah. He wrote about how much he regretted not standing up to her manipulative behavior, how he felt guilty for allowing her to isolate him from the people who truly cared about him like me. He spoke about how he'd tried to keep the peace to avoid confrontation, but how he now saw that his silence had allowed her to take control of their lives. Reading Leo's words felt like a punch to the gut. He had been so torn, so conflicted, and I had never known. I felt a mix of sorrow and frustration. Sorrow that my son had been so manipulated, and frustration that he hadn't told me the truth sooner. But more than that, I felt a deep sense of resolve. In his letter, Leo wrote that he wanted me to always fight for what was right, to protect myself and the things that mattered most. This house, he wrote, was never just mine, Margaret. It's ours, and you have every right to stay in it. Don't let her take it from you. Don't let her erase our life together. Tears filled my eyes as I read the last few lines. Leo's words were more than just a letter. They were a message, a final act of love and trust. He had known what Sarah was capable of, and even in death, he was urging me to stand my ground. The letter became my strength. It was a reminder of everything I had fought for, of everything Leo and I had shared. It was my resolve to continue this battle, not just for the house, but for Leo's legacy and our family's memory. The next morning, I placed the letter on the kitchen counter, right where Sarah couldn't miss it. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. Leo had trusted me, and now I was going to trust in the strength he had always seen in me. When Sarah came into the room later that day, I didn't need to say anything. The letter spoke for me. Her eyes narrowed when she saw it, and for the first time I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her gaze. She knew deep down that the truth had been revealed and she was no longer in control. I had my answer. I wasn't going anywhere. This house, my life, my past, it all mattered, and I would protect it, for Leo, for myself, and for the future that Sarah could never take from me. The days after the court ruling were heavy with a mix of relief and uncertainty. The victory was mine, yes, but Sarah's departure was something I had been waiting for with bated breath. It felt surreal, knowing that the house, our home, the place where Leo and I had built a life together, was finally free of the shadows Sarah had cast over it. At first, Sarah seemed to retreat into herself. Her usual air of confidence shattered. The manipulative charm she had once wielded so easily seemed to have evaporated. It was clear she had underestimated me, but now there was no more room for her deceit. No more room for her to act as if she were the victim. No more space for her to erase Leo's memory from this house. I watched her day by day as she moved around the house, packing up her things in silence. There were no more arguments, no more heated confrontations, just the quiet rustle of boxes being filled. It was almost as if she had resigned herself to her fate. The finality of it was haunting, but I had no pity left for her. I had to remind myself that I had won. It wasn't just the legal battle, it was reclaiming what had always been mine. Every photograph I had restored to its rightful place, every piece of furniture that had once been my son's, every corner of this house, held a memory, a story, a part of me. And now I had taken it all back. It wasn't long before Sarah came to me with the inevitable news. It had been almost a week since the ruling, and I had been waiting for her to finally face the reality of the situation. She walked into the living room that morning, her face pale, her shoulders slumped. It was the first time in a long while that she didn't try to put on a facade of strength. "I'm leaving," she said quietly, her voice void of any emotion. "I've packed everything. I'll be gone by the end of the day." I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of closure wash over me. I had known this day would come, but hearing it from her lips made it real. There was no more power struggle, no more manipulation. This chapter of my life was coming to an end. And though it wasn't easy to watch her walk away, I knew it was what had to happen. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of an emotional response. After everything she had done, after all the lies and manipulations she didn't deserve, to see the impact she had on me. Instead, I simply said, "Goodbye, Sarah." She looked at me for a moment as though expecting something more, a plea for her to stay perhaps, or an apology for everything that had transpired. But I had nothing more to say. The woman who had tried to tear my life apart didn't deserve any more of my energy. She had already taken enough. As Sarah began to leave, I went about my day with a calmness I hadn't felt in months. There was a quiet peace in the air, the kind you only feel when something heavy is finally lifted. The house felt different, lighter, as if it could finally breathe again. I walked through each room, touching the familiar objects, the ones Sarah had tried to move, the ones that carried the memories of Leo. They were still here, still mine. And now, with Sarah gone, they could once again be a part of my life without her interference. I stood by the door for a moment, watching her pack the last of her things into her car. She didn't say anything else, not even a final word or glance. She just left her car, pulling away from the driveway as I stood there motionless, watching her disappear from my life for good. It was over. The next few hours were a blur. I went room by room, tidying up, straightening the furniture that Sarah had moved, making the house feel like it was mine again. Each corner, each space filled with Leo's presence, his essence, it all came flooding back. I wasn't just a visitor in this house anymore. I was home. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt a sense of peace. No more fear, no more doubt. The house was mine, and with it the memories of my son, my love for him, and the life we had shared. Leo was never truly gone. He lived in every room, every photograph, every single detail of this place. That night, I sat on the couch in the living room, staring out the window at the empty driveway, the quiet settling over me like a blanket. It was a strange feeling, this calm after the storm, but it was a calm I had earned through every tear, every fight, and every sleepless night. And in that moment, as the darkness enveloped the house and the silence filled the air, I knew that I was finally free. Free from Sarah's lies, free from the hold she had tried to impose on my life. And as I sat there surrounded by the home Leo and I had built, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over me. I had reclaimed what was mine, and in doing so, I had found my peace. The house was silent, but for the first time in months, it was a peaceful silence. It was mine again. No more fighting, no more fear, just me, my memories, and the space to heal. And I knew deep down that Leo would be proud. The house had been quiet since Sarah's departure, but I knew it wasn't over. It never really was with her. I could feel the tension lingering in the air like a storm on the horizon, just waiting to break. Sarah had been silent for the last few days, packing up her things and leaving without a word, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she still had something up her sleeve. The morning after her departure, I went into the kitchen to start my day. As I poured myself a cup of coffee, my phone buzzed on the countertop. I picked it up expecting a message from a friend, or perhaps one of Leo's colleagues who had been offering their condolences, but instead it was an unexpected text message from Jack, Leo's close friend. The message made my heart race. It read, "I just heard from Sarah. She's telling people you've been lying about everything, that you fabricated your claims to the house. She says you're trying to take everything from her. Is that true?" I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a tight knot form in my stomach. My first instinct was disbelief. How could she? After everything that had happened, Sarah was still trying to manipulate others into believing her lies. But then I realized something. This wasn't just a last-ditch effort to control me. It was her attempt to turn people against me, to paint me as the villain one final time. But Jack was Leo's best friend. He knew me. He knew the truth. I quickly typed a response, my fingers trembling slightly, as I tried to keep my emotions in check. "Sarah is lying. You know me, Jack. You know what she's capable of. I fought for this house because it was always mine and Leo's. Sarah is trying to manipulate the situation to get her way, but I've never lied. Please don't believe her. Eve. I hit send and set the phone down, my hands shaking. I didn't want to deal with Sarah's games anymore. I didn't want to be dragged back into her manipulations. But deep down, I knew I had to face this head on. I couldn't let her spread her lies, not when I had already fought so hard to protect what was mine. It didn't take long for Jack to reply. His response was exactly what I needed to hear. I believe you, Margaret. I know Sarah has been lying. Leo would have wanted you to have the house. Don't worry about her. I've got your back. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. Jack was on my side. He knew the truth, and now Sarah's last attempt to turn people against me had failed. But as much as I wanted to relish in this victory, there was still a sense of finality that I hadn't fully felt yet. Sarah had tried to destroy me. She had used every trick in the book to manipulate, to control, to erase the life Leo and I had built. But now she was gone. The battle was over. I took a deep breath and walked to the front door. The house that had been so full of tension, so full of fear, was now quiet, peaceful. The weight that had been hanging over me for so long was finally lifting. I had protected what mattered most to me, the home Leo and I had built together, the place where my memories of him would live on. As I stood by the door, I looked out the window at the empty driveway. Sarah's car was no longer parked in front of the house. It was strange how empty it all felt now. The house was mine again, but it felt like the end of a chapter I had never imagined I would have to write. I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing the silence to wash over me. No more lies, no more manipulation. It was just me, my memories, and this space that Leo and I had shared. I had fought for it, and now it was mine once again. With a deep breath, I turned the lock on the door, hearing the satisfying click of finality. Sarah was gone, and so were her lies. The door had been locked, and the house was secure. I had reclaimed my home, my peace, and my future. The next few days were calm, almost peaceful. There was no more drama, no more tension. It was just me alone in the house that Leo and I had made a life in. I could finally let go of the anger, the fear, and the stress that had been clouding my mind for so long. It was time for me to heal, time for me to live in a space that no longer felt like a battleground. The house once filled with Sarah's manipulations now felt like it was truly mine again. I walked through the rooms, touching the familiar walls, the photographs, the furniture. Each piece held a memory, one of love, of laughter, and of the life Leo and I had shared. And now I could finally make new memories, memories that belonged only to me. In the evening, I sat in the living room just like I had done with Leo countless times. The silence in the house was no longer oppressive. It was a comfort. I could almost hear Leo's voice in the quiet, a soft reminder of everything we had built. And in that moment, as I sat there finally free of the chaos Sarah had tried to create, I felt a sense of peace that I had been craving for so long. This house was no longer a place of conflict. It was a place of healing, of memories, and of love. And it was mine. The days that followed Sarah's departure were filled with a kind of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in months, I could truly breathe. The constant weight of fear, uncertainty, and manipulation had been lifted from my shoulders. Sarah was gone, her lies exposed, and I was no longer fighting to keep my own life intact. I had reclaimed my home, my space, and my peace. As I moved through the house, each room felt different. The once oppressive silence now felt like a warm embrace. The furniture that had been moved, the photos that had been displaced, everything was back where it belonged. It was as if the house itself had been waiting for me to restore it to its rightful state, to bring back the love and memories Leo and I had shared. The evenings were the hardest, of course. There were moments when I would sit on the couch looking at the empty spaces where Leo once stood, and I would feel the ache of his absence. But it wasn't the painful, suffocating grief it once was. Now there was a peaceful sorrow, a bittersweet understanding that I had fought for this house, for our life, and I had won. I had fought for Leo's legacy, for my right to live here without fear, and now I could honor him in a space that was ours again. I spent the next few weeks getting back into the rhythm of life. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments when I missed Leo terribly, when the house felt too quiet, but I was learning to live with the silence, not as an enemy, but as a companion. I was finally able to enjoy the space that had once been marred by conflict. I knew that there would be difficult days ahead, moments of remembering, moments of grief. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of losing this home, of losing the memories of Leo. I was free, and that freedom was mine to hold on to. As I sat in the kitchen one evening, a soft breeze flowing through the open window, I realized how far I had come. I had fought for this peace, this life, and now I could finally live it without the constant shadow of Sarah's manipulation. The journey had been long, painful at times, but it had led me to this moment. A moment of peace, of quiet reflection, of knowing that no matter what had happened, I had never given up. And as I looked around the house, I couldn't help but smile, knowing that it was mine again. Not just the house, but my life, reclaimed. What I find most powerful about Margaret's journey is her unwavering strength in reclaiming her own life. In a world where we're often told to bend to others' expectations, especially within family dynamics, Margaret stands as a reminder that it's never too late to fight for what you deserve: your peace, your home, and your right to be heard. Too often, we allow ourselves to be manipulated or silenced, thinking that peace can only come by giving in. But Margaret shows us that true peace comes when we have the courage to stand our ground, even when it seems impossible. We live in a society where manipulation and control are often disguised as love or concern. Sarah's actions, masking selfish motives with fake sympathy, are an unfortunate reflection of how toxic relationships can be, especially when power dynamics are at play. It's easy to lose ourselves in such relationships, to question our worth, and allow someone else to dictate the narrative of our lives. But Margaret teaches us that we must never forget our value. We must protect our space, our rights, and the legacy of the relationships we truly cherish. If there's anything we can take away from Margaret's story, it's that we must never stop fighting for what is ours. We must learn to trust ourselves and our instincts. Don't let anyone, no matter how close they are to you, rewrite your history or manipulate your future. Stand strong. Your peace, your life, and your legacy are worth protecting. What are your thoughts on standing up for yourself when faced with manipulation or control in relationships? How do you reclaim your peace when others try to take it away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a conversation about the importance of protecting our mental and emotional well-being.